They said the sky never blazes like that over Montana anymore. Ethan whispered to himself as he tightened the straps on his worn leather pack, the early morning sun casting long shadows across the jagged peaks that surrounded the valley. Snow clung to the pine branches like frozen lace, and the crisp air carried the faint scent of wood smoke from distant cabins. His silver pickup, parked along the narrow mountain road, creaked under the weight of frost, tires leaving thin tracks on the icy gravel. Shadow, his 6-year-old German shepherd, padded beside him, muscles coiled beneath a thick coat of black and tan fur, ears twitching at every whisper of wind. Ethan's eyes, steel gray with flecks of storm blue, scanned the horizon where the fiery streak had vanished moments before, a line of orange and red painting the sky like molten glass. He could feel the weight of silence pressing against him, the kind of silence that had followed him from his tours overseas, a quiet that spoke louder than any explosion. Shadow's amber eyes locked on a distant ridge, his body tense, nose lifting to the air as if reading secrets hidden to human senses. The veteran crouched slightly, adjusting the scope of his binoculars, tracing the contours of the mountainside, where the snow shifted in odd patterns, reflecting the lingering glow. Every footstep they took crunching over frozen pine needles seemed amplified, echoing in the stillness, and Ethan felt the pulse of the land beneath him, subtle yet insistent. Shadow moved ahead, ears high, stopping abruptly near a cluster of boulders, low growl rumbling from his chest, a sound that wasn't fear, but an instinct older than memory. Ethan approached carefully, boots crunching against ice-laced stone, feeling a strange connection to the earth, to the wind that whispered through the pines. He knelt, running a gloved hand along the rough surface of a moss-covered rock, sensing vibrations that matched the rhythm of his own heartbeat, and the dog pressed his paw lightly against the same stone, as if confirming a message from beneath. The sun climbed slowly, spilling pale gold across the valley, illuminating the icy crust of a hidden creek that wound like a silver ribbon through the trees. Ethan inhaled deeply, the cold air filling his lungs with a sharp clarity, and felt the quiet thrill of anticipation, the kind that comes before a discovery that could change everything. Shadow's tail flicked once, deliberate, guiding him toward a narrow gap in the rocks where the snow had drifted unevenly, revealing a hint of metal glinting under the frost. Ethan's hand hovered over his pack, fingers brushing the straps, but his attention remained on the dog, the bond between them taut and silent, a communication older than words. Together they moved toward the glinting object, each step measured, the forest around them a cathedral of silence, broken only by the occasional snap of ice and the distant call of a hawk. Ethan's thoughts drifted briefly to the town below, unaware that what they were about to uncover could ripple through the streets, altering lives quietly but profoundly. Shadow stopped again, nose to the ground, ears pricked, tail low and steady, signaling that the secret lay just beyond the next rise. Ethan rose slowly, squinting through the sun's glare on the snow, heart thumping with a mixture of wonder and resolve, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his broad shoulders. The streak in the sky had been more than a spark, it had been a sign, and Shadow, with instincts honed beyond human understanding, had sensed something that demanded action. With one last glance at the ridge bathed in the soft morning light, Ethan nodded to the dog, and they stepped forward together into the unknown, the chill of the mountain air carrying both a warning and a promise of discovery. The snow deepened as Ethan and Shadow continued along the narrow trail, the morning light shifting to a soft amber that streaked across the frozen pines. Each step echoed faintly against the mountainside, carrying a crispness that seemed to amplify every whisper of the wind. Ethan adjusted his woolen scarf, the fibers brushing against his jaw, while Shadow moved deliberately, paws crunching against icy rocks and frozen twigs, nose low, ears flicking at sounds too subtle for human ears. The trail opened to a ridge that overlooked the valley below, a panorama of snow-dusted rooftops and winding streams glinting like liquid silver under the weak sunlight. Ethan paused, breathing in the cold air, letting the silence fill the spaces where noise had once been, where gunfire and distant explosions had once marked his world. Shadow tilted his head, ears alert, and began to tug gently toward a dense cluster of cedars that cast long shadows across the snow, their needles glistening with frost. Ethan followed, careful to keep his boots from slipping over the hidden patches of ice, and felt a pulse of anticipation that tightened his chest in a way that was both familiar and invigorating. Beneath the trees, the ground rose slightly, and there, partially covered by snow and pine litter, lay a small, weathered metal plate, its edges rusted, letters nearly obscured. Ethan knelt, brushing the snow aside, feeling the cold bite through his gloves, and traced the faded markings with his fingers, the metal smooth yet pitted with age. Shadow pressed close, amber eyes scanning the surrounding forest, every muscle coiled, alert to vibrations Ethan could not feel. The air shifted subtly, carrying the faint scent of minerals and earth, a hint of something buried. Ethan stood, surveying the slope beyond the cedars, noticing that the snow had drifted in unnatural patterns, forming slight depressions and raised mounds that seemed to tell a story of movement long past. He glanced at Shadow, and the dog met his gaze with an intensity that spoke of understanding and urgency. Together, they continued upward, the forest thinning slightly as they approached a rocky outcrop that jutted from the mountainside, jagged and silent, half encased in ice. Ethan ran a gloved hand along the stone, feeling a vibration that was imperceptible to most, a low hum that resonated through the bones, and Shadow pressed his paw against the same rock, nudging Ethan forward with an insistence that was patient yet commanding. As they rounded the outcrop, they discovered a narrow fissure, partly hidden beneath snow and shadow, leading into darkness that smelled faintly of earth and cold stone. Ethan felt a shiver, not from cold, but from the weight of curiosity and expectation, and he allowed Shadow to step ahead, trusting the dog to sense what lay within. The fissure widened into a small cavity, just enough to crouch and move forward carefully, and inside, the walls were etched with age, lichen, and frost patterns that glimmered like veins of silver. A faint, rhythmic tapping echoed from deep within, subtle and deliberate, and Shadow froze, ears pricked, tail low, growling softly, a sound that carried no aggression but reverence. Ethan crouched beside the dog, eyes narrowing as he listened, realizing that the sound pulsed with a regularity that was almost hypnotic, a heartbeat of the mountain itself or something hidden within. He placed a hand on the cold stone, feeling the rhythm resonate through his palm, and breathed deeply, letting the scent of earth, ice, and something indefinably ancient fill his senses. Shadow nudged him forward again, guiding him toward a small alcove, where partially buried under a layer of frozen soil and debris was a weathered wooden chest, reinforced with iron bands, its lock rusted but intact. Ethan knelt, brushing away the snow and pine needles, revealing intricate carvings along its lid that seemed to tell a story, though worn by decades of exposure. He glanced at Shadow, who sat patiently, amber eyes fixed on the chest, and Ethan felt a swell of anticipation mingled with awe. The wind whispered through the cavern entrance, carrying the faint metallic tang of something long hidden, and as he prepared to open the chest, the first rays of sunlight struck through a crack in the trees, illuminating the alcove in a golden hue, making the carvings shimmer as if acknowledging their discovery. Ethan inhaled, steadying himself, the weight of the moment pressing upon him, a quiet understanding passing between man and dog that whatever lay within this chest was more than a relic. It was a key to a story that could change the valley, the town below, and perhaps even the course of time itself, and with a deliberate motion, he lifted the lid, letting the shadows and light mingle, revealing glimpses of something precious, fragile, and extraordinary. The chest creaked softly as Ethan lifted the lid fully, revealing its contents bathed in the golden morning light that filtered through the trees. Inside lay an assortment of carefully preserved documents, maps, and small objects glinting faintly with age, each piece telling a story that had been hidden beneath the mountain for decades. The scent of old paper mixed with the crisp, metallic tang of iron, a smell that made Ethan pause, breathing slowly, letting the air fill his lungs with a sense of history and anticipation. Shadow stepped closer, nose twitching, ears high, tail low but steady, sensing the significance of each object as though he could feel the pulse of the past embedded in the chest. Ethan carefully lifted a folded map, its edges frayed, lines drawn with ink that had faded to a soft sepia, marking locations across the valley below and along the mountain ridges, places that had long been forgotten by the townspeople. He ran his fingers over the map, tracing the routes, imagining the lives of those who had created it, and felt a shiver of connection to a time and story far beyond his own experience. Among the papers lay a small, hand-carved compass, its needle still moving freely despite the years of stillness, as if eager to point the way for those who sought to understand the mystery it was guarding. Ethan held it in his palm, feeling the weight and the slight hum of metal, a resonance that seemed to harmonize with the faint tapping from deep within the alcove, a rhythm that had guided him and Shadow to this very place. Shadow pawed at a bundle of cloth, uncovering a series of journals bound in worn leather, their pages filled with delicate script that spoke of observations of the valley, unusual phenomena, and a devotion to preserving knowledge for future generations. Ethan opened one carefully, scanning lines that described the fiery streaks that had appeared across the sky years before, accounts of the mountains shifting, and notes about hidden chambers that could change the understanding of the land itself. The air inside the alcove seemed to thrum with quiet energy, and Ethan felt an almost sacred hush settle over the space, as though the mountain itself was watching, waiting for the story to be discovered. Sunlight angled through the entrance, glinting off metal clasps and glimmering on the frost inside, and a soft wind whispered past, carrying the faint sound of distant running water from a hidden spring. Ethan bent closer to the journals, reading passages that hinted at a treasure of knowledge and history, artifacts and inventions that had been buried to protect them, not from greed, but from the passage of time and the fear that the world had not yet been ready. Shadow nosed at a small cavity in the corner of the chest, revealing a collection of carefully stacked glass bottles, each containing a preserved sample of soil, water, or minerals, meticulously labeled and maintained, a testament to patience and foresight. Ethan lifted one, marveling at the clarity and the subtle differences in color, imagining the hands that had collected, analyzed, and preserved them, and felt a wave of respect for the unknown individual who had dedicated so much to keeping this hidden sanctuary. The distant valley below glimmered faintly, sunlight dancing across the frozen creek and rooftops, and Ethan felt the first hint of understanding that whatever secret this chest contained was not only about the past, but had the power to shape the future. He laid out the documents and objects carefully on a flat stone, aligning them so he could absorb each detail, each clue, feeling the story begin to unfold in his mind, connecting the fiery streaks, the hidden maps, and the mountain itself into a tapestry of discovery. Shadow lay nearby, ears flicking at every subtle noise, alert and watchful, a guardian of the story that had been entrusted to them, his presence grounding Ethan in the moment and reminding him of the partnership that had brought them to this threshold. The gentle hum of the wind, the faint echo of tapping from the depths, and the shimmer of light on aged metal created an atmosphere that was both serene and charged with anticipation, a cinematic silence filled with promise. Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling the pulse of adventure and revelation coiling within him, aware that the journey was only beginning, and that Shadow, with instincts beyond comprehension, would guide each step as they prepared to follow the secrets hidden in the chest into the mysteries lying deeper within the mountains, the valley, and the town that waited below, ready to be changed. The sunlight shifted slowly across the ridge, casting long, pale beams that danced over the snow-laden boulders as Ethan carefully folded the map and placed the journals back into the chest. Shadow lingered close, tail sweeping gently over the icy floor, ears twitching at every subtle sound that seemed to hum from the mountain itself. Ethan rose to his feet, brushing the frost from his jacket, feeling the weight of the discoveries pressing upon him, a quiet gravity that was part awe, part responsibility. He stepped forward to the narrow fissure that led deeper into the alcove, watching Shadow move with a deliberate grace, nose close to the ground, following some hidden thread of scent or vibration that Ethan could not perceive. The forest outside remained hushed, the wind whispering through the cedars, carrying a faint metallic tang that seemed to emanate from the chest they had uncovered, mingling with the crisp scent of pine and cold stone. Ethan adjusted the strap of his pack, and glanced back over the valley, noting the subtle glimmer of sunlight reflecting off frozen streams and rooftops, the town far below unaware that secrets long buried were beginning to surface. With a deep inhale, he crouched again, allowing the cold to sharpen his senses, and followed Shadow through the winding path of rock and snow. The alcove opening into a wider cavern where shadows pooled in corners, and the light from outside created intricate patterns across the walls. His gloved hands brushed against the rough stone, feeling the subtle vibrations of something hidden deep within, a rhythm that was steady yet alive, like the heartbeat of the mountain itself. Shadow paused at a small rise, amber eyes fixed on a darker section of the cavern floor, paw raised as if marking the spot, a silent signal that Ethan recognized immediately. He knelt, brushing away loose debris, and discovered a thin metal plate embedded in the stone, engraved with symbols that were both intricate and weathered by time. The morning light caught the edges of the engraving, casting faint shadows that danced across the stone, revealing patterns that seemed to tell a story, a narrative written in silence over decades. Ethan traced the lines with his fingers, feeling the smooth cold of the metal against his skin, sensing the careful craftsmanship that had gone into creating something meant to endure, to be found only by someone patient enough, observant enough, and guided by something beyond sight alone. Shadow circled the small area, nosing gently at cracks and hollows, ears flicking toward sounds that seemed to echo faintly, a rhythm of life within the stones. Ethan followed, crouching low, noticing the subtle shifts in the air, the faint traces of warmth and moisture that hinted at a hidden passage just beyond the visible, the kind of secret that required both intuition and courage to pursue. He moved forward slowly, the narrow path curving around the jagged rocks, and the temperature dropped slightly, the cavern taking on a crystalline sheen as light reflected off frost and mineral deposits. Shadow paused again, ears high, tail low, and gave a soft, deliberate growl that was neither warning nor fear but attention, a signal that the next discovery lay just beyond. Ethan felt his pulse quicken, a mix of anticipation and reverence, as he adjusted his gloves and stepped over a small ridge, revealing a deeper chamber beyond, larger and more open, where the walls glimmered faintly with veins of mineral, and the air carried a subtle hum, almost musical in its resonance. At the far end of the chamber, partially obscured by shadow, was a stone doorway, rough-hewn and weathered, its edges worn smooth by time and the elements, suggesting that someone had intentionally concealed this entrance for reasons that Ethan could only begin to imagine. Shadow approached first, paws clicking softly on the stone, sniffing the threshold, and Ethan followed, crouching low, hand brushing against the cold rock as he stepped toward the doorway, feeling the pulse of history and the promise of discovery intertwining. The light from the entrance cast a golden hue across the chamber, illuminating dust motes that floated in the still air, giving the space an ethereal glow, as if the mountain itself was breathing gently around them. Ethan exhaled slowly, the rhythm of his breathing syncing with Shadow's steady presence, and he felt a quiet certainty that what lay beyond the doorway would reveal not just hidden objects or documents, but truths that could reshape understanding of the land, the town below, and perhaps even the stories that had been whispered for generations, waiting patiently to be uncovered by a veteran guided by a dog whose instincts transcended sight and sound. Ethan stepped cautiously through the stone doorway, the air inside carrying a crisp, almost metallic chill that seemed to vibrate faintly against his skin. Shadow moved immediately beside him, ears pricked and muscles coiled, as if sensing currents invisible to human perception. The chamber beyond widened into a natural cavern, its walls glinting with veins of quartz and mica that caught the morning light filtering from the entrance, scattering it in soft, golden flecks across the uneven floor. The scent of earth and frost mingled with the faint aroma of mineral deposits, creating an atmosphere that was at once serene and alive with anticipation. Ethan's gloved hands brushed against the cool, rough walls as he moved forward slowly, every step calculated to avoid disturbing the delicate balance of dust and ice beneath his boots. Shadow paused near a cluster of jagged rocks, nudging Ethan toward a partially concealed passage, a narrow corridor carved by water and time, its edges softened by centuries of slow erosion. Ethan followed, crouching low as the corridor led into a more open space, where a low ceiling was interspersed with stalactites, each catching the light like frozen droplets of amber. The rhythmic hum from deeper within the cavern persisted, subtle yet distinct, as though the mountain itself was breathing in quiet pulses that resonated through the stone. Shadow sniffed the air, then pawed gently at the ground near a mound of snow and debris, revealing a small wooden crate, weathered but intact, secured with iron bands that had dulled to a muted brown with age. Ethan knelt beside it, brushing away layers of snow and frost, and carefully lifted the lid to reveal an assortment of objects that gleamed faintly under the filtered light. There were glass vials containing preserved soil samples, small carved figures depicting natural scenes, and a bundle of folded parchment, its edges frayed and ink faded to a delicate brown. He lifted a vial, turning it slowly in his hand, watching the light pass through its contents, and felt a surge of reverence for the hands that had collected, cataloged, and protected these items through decades of solitude. Shadow remained close, amber eyes following Ethan's movements, tail swishing gently in quiet approval, sensing the importance of each object with a clarity beyond human understanding. Ethan unfolded one of the parchments, revealing a map that traced the contours of the valley below, noting landmarks, hidden trails, and subtle anomalies in the terrain that suggested the presence of structures or features long forgotten by the town below. His fingers traced the faded lines, imagining the lives of those who had navigated this landscape generations ago, preserving secrets that had waited patiently to be discovered. The chamber seemed to hum softly, each vibration in the stone aligning with the quiet rhythm of his breath, and Ethan felt a profound connection to the mountain, the valley, and the invisible story woven through time and earth. He arranged the vials, figures, and maps methodically on a flat stone, studying them in tandem, letting the narratives emerge through observation and intuition. Shadow nosed at a dark crevice along the wall, uncovering another small compartment with more carefully preserved items, each a fragment of a larger puzzle, hints of knowledge intended to be revealed in stages, not all at once. Ethan crouched, studying the carvings and the placement of objects, sensing an underlying order, a deliberate guidance embedded by someone who had anticipated a finder. With patience, respect, and discernment, the light shifted slowly as the sun climbed higher, illuminating details in the walls and artifacts that had been invisible moments before, and the cavern seemed to respond subtly, the faint hum growing warmer, almost inviting. Ethan inhaled deeply, feeling the stillness, the anticipation, and the weight of responsibility, knowing that what lay before him was more than a collection of items. It was a carefully guarded history, a series of messages and treasures meant to inform, inspire, and perhaps even protect the town that slumbered far below. Shadow pressed gently against his side, eyes gleaming with focus, a silent reminder that together they had reached a threshold, a point where discovery intertwined with understanding, and the journey of exploration and revelation was only beginning to unfold deeper into the mountain's hidden heart. Ethan adjusted his stance, the chill of the cavern brushing against his exposed face, and glanced at Shadow, whose sharp amber eyes flicked toward the deeper shadows, where the faint hum resonated more clearly. The dog's ears moved independently, catching the subtlest vibrations in the stone beneath their feet, guiding Ethan with a precision that seemed almost preternatural. The cavern widened gradually, walls arching like the vault of a cathedral, veins of quartz catching shards of sunlight that had penetrated the narrow fissure above, scattering them across the uneven floor in sparkling patterns that danced with the rhythm of the hum. Ethan moved cautiously, hands brushing along the rough stone to steady himself as he followed Shadow, boots crunching against frost and small pebbles, every sound echoing softly in the vast, quiet chamber. Ahead, a natural alcove revealed itself, partially obscured by hanging stalactites, and Ethan noticed faint carvings etched into the stone, delicate patterns that suggested symbols or markings left intentionally, a language of the past waiting to be understood. Shadow pressed forward, nose low, tail sweeping slowly, pausing as he sniffed toward a corner where a faint glow emanated from beneath a thin layer of ice and debris. Ethan knelt beside him, clearing the frost carefully with gloved hands, revealing a small, intricate mechanical device, its gears and cogs still intact, delicate craftsmanship preserved despite decades of stillness. He lifted it gently, turning it in his hands, feeling the weight and subtle vibration, a quiet resonance that seemed in harmony with the hum of the cavern, as if the device had been attuned to the heartbeat of the mountain itself. Around him, the cavern seemed alive, shadows stretching and contracting with the slant of the sunlight, tiny particles of dust drifting lazily in the beams of gold and silver. Ethan laid the device on a flat stone and continued to explore, discovering a series of tablets carved from a dark, smooth rock, each inscribed with symbols that hinted at astronomical observations, tracking the movement of celestial events with astonishing precision. Shadow stayed close, ears flicking, occasionally tapping his paw against a rock as if confirming details invisible to Ethan, guiding him toward a small recess where a collection of glass spheres rested, each containing a miniature landscape, moss, and water, preserved meticulously as though someone had sought to capture the essence of the mountain itself. Ethan studied the spheres, turning them slowly to catch every angle, marveling at the care and patience of their maker, sensing a narrative woven through their arrangement, a story linking the fiery streaks in the sky, the maps, the journals, and now these crafted miniatures into a coherent message meant to be discovered by those patient enough to notice. The air in the chamber grew subtly warmer, carrying the faint scent of minerals and aged wood from the previously uncovered chest, mingling with the crispness of the snow that had trailed in from the entrance. Ethan allowed himself a deep breath, feeling the rhythm of the place, the pulse of history and preservation, and he realized that Shadow's guidance was not merely instinct but a connection to the hidden energy of the mountain, a silent partnership that had led them to each revelation in turn. As he rose and moved toward the deeper recess, the cavern seemed to respond, light shifting on the walls, illuminating previously unseen patterns etched into stone, casting a faint, ethereal glow over every surface. Ethan followed Shadow, letting the dog lead the way with confidence and trust, aware that each discovery was part of a larger tapestry, a chain of knowledge and wonder carefully concealed by those who had come before, and that together they were uncovering a story that would ripple outward, changing understanding of the valley, the town below, and the lives of those who dwelled there, a story preserved through time, patience, and the quiet vigilance of a mountain and a dog. Ethan stepped deeper into the chamber, the soft golden light from the entrance fading as the shadows thickened around him, and Shadow moved ahead, nose low, tail sweeping steadily, every movement deliberate, as if reading the unseen patterns of the cavern. The air carried a subtle warmth, mingled with the faint scent of minerals and ancient wood, a reminder of the careful preservation of the secrets around them. Ethan's gloved hands traced the walls, feeling the irregular texture, the faint vibrations pulsing through the stone, a rhythm that seemed synchronized with the subtle hum that had guided them this far. He crouched slightly, adjusting his footing on the uneven floor, watching Shadow pause near a series of carvings etched into the stone, lines delicate yet purposeful, depicting celestial events, mountain contours, and strange streaks of fire across the sky. Ethan studied the markings, running a finger along the grooves, sensing the connection between the visual story and the objects they had uncovered, understanding that each element was part of a deliberate narrative, a guide left for those patient and observant enough to follow. Shadow's ears twitched, picking up a faint resonance that Ethan could not detect, a vibration that seemed to lead him toward a narrow alcove partially hidden behind a natural curtain of rock. The alcove revealed a low pedestal, crafted from the same stone as the cavern floor, upon which rested a small, intricate device, its brass and glass components catching the faint light, shimmering with a quiet brilliance. Ethan knelt, examining it carefully, noting its mechanical precision, the delicate balance of gears and levers that suggested it was more than decorative, that it held a purpose connected to the chamber itself. Shadow shifted slightly, placing a paw near the base, nudging Ethan gently, guiding him as if reminding him that the dog's instincts were part of the discovery process, a silent partnership that had brought them to this point. The cavern seemed to respond subtly, faint echoes dancing along the walls, and the hum grew a touch stronger, a vibration that Ethan felt through the soles of his boots, a resonance that hinted at hidden passageways or mechanisms waiting to be revealed. He adjusted his gloves, lifting the device carefully and turning it in his hands, noting the weight, the balance, and the precise craftsmanship, and he felt a quiet thrill, the same anticipation that had accompanied each previous discovery, a sense that they were unraveling a story that had been waiting for decades to be understood. Around them, light filtered through cracks in the ceiling, illuminating dust motes that swirled in gentle currents, the cavern alive with motion despite the stillness, a cinematic interplay of shadow and light that seemed almost orchestrated. Ethan set the device back on the pedestal, scanning the alcove for further clues, noticing small grooves in the stone floor that aligned with the carvings on the walls, subtle indicators that the pedestal might have been part of a larger system or mechanism. Shadows circled the area, tapping the stone lightly with a paw here and there, drawing Ethan's attention to a narrow channel partially hidden beneath debris and frost, a passage that appeared to descend further into the mountain, its entrance framed by natural rock formations that almost concealed it from view. Ethan crouched and examined the channel, noting the airflow, the faint scent of earth and minerals, and the way the hum seemed to resonate more strongly from within, a clear signal that whatever lay ahead was integral to the sequence of discoveries they had been following. He straightened, brushing snow and dust from his coat, and took a slow breath, feeling the gravity of the moment, aware that the next steps would lead them further into the mountain's hidden depths, deeper into the carefully concealed history and secrets that had been patiently waiting for a pair with patience, courage, and an understanding beyond the ordinary. Guided by instincts and intuition, and with Shadow by his side, Ethan stepped forward toward the passage, ready to uncover what lay beyond, the mountain holding its breath in anticipation. Ethan descended carefully into the narrow passage, the walls closing slightly around him as the faint hum of the mountain grew stronger, resonating through the stone and into his boots, a rhythm that seemed to guide each step. Shadow moved ahead with measured confidence, nose to the ground, ears flicking at subtle vibrations, tail sweeping with quiet focus, a constant reminder of the bond and trust between them. The light from the chamber above dimmed gradually, leaving only slivers of gold reflecting off veins of quartz embedded in the stone, casting fractured patterns across the uneven floor. Each breath Ethan drew was crisp and cold, carrying the scent of earth, mineral, and a faint trace of frost that had drifted in from the cavern entrance. He crouched low to navigate a tight bend, brushing his gloved hands along the rough walls, feeling the subtle vibrations that seemed almost like a heartbeat, steady and deliberate, echoing through the natural stone corridor. The passage gradually opened into a wider chamber, low ceilings giving way to natural arches, walls adorned with delicate etchings that shimmered faintly under the filtered light, depicting constellations, mountains, and abstract symbols that seemed to narrate a story of the land and its hidden secrets. Shadow paused at a cluster of smooth stones, pawing gently at a depression that hinted at a concealed feature beneath, and Ethan followed, clearing away frost and debris to reveal a small, stone-carved mechanism, its design precise, gears interlocking perfectly despite decades of silence. He lifted it carefully, inspecting the brass and iron components, feeling the slight resonance when his fingers brushed against the metal, a subtle vibration that seemed to harmonize with the cavern itself. Around them, dust motes drifted lazily in the thin shafts of light, casting shifting patterns across the walls and ceiling, creating a living tapestry of shadow and illumination. Ethan adjusted his backpack and leaned closer to the stonework, tracing the grooves and etchings, sensing a deliberate sequence meant to guide those who arrived with patience and insight. Shadow nudged his hand gently, encouraging him to continue toward a corner where the floor sloped slightly, revealing a series of small alcoves hidden behind natural ridges, each containing fragments of glass, intricately carved stones, and weathered parchment rolled and bound with simple twine. Ethan lifted each piece carefully, examining the textures, inscriptions, and arrangement, sensing a narrative linking the chambers above, the fiery streaks, the maps, and now these carefully preserved artifacts into a cohesive message awaiting discovery. The soft hum persisted, its origin imperceptible but undeniably present, a subtle soundtrack to their exploration that seemed to anticipate each new revelation. Sunlight from the fissure above glinted on the edges of minerals and glass, casting tiny rainbows across the chamber, and Ethan felt a quiet reverence, an understanding that the mountain itself was participating in the unfolding of this hidden story. Shadow circled again, ears twitching, nose alert, tail low and steady, guiding Ethan toward the final alcove, where a faint glow emanated through a thin layer of frost and stone dust, hinting at a significant object or collection beyond. Ethan crouched, clearing the last remnants of snow and rock, revealing a flat stone surface with markings similar to those etched on the walls, symbols and lines that aligned perfectly with the artifacts they had discovered, suggesting an intentional design and purpose. He traced the lines with gloved fingers, feeling the subtle irregularities, the whispers of a hand that had crafted this sequence with care, foresight, and patience. Shadow sat quietly, eyes fixed on the stone, attentive and steady, a reminder that every detail, every vibration, and every discovery was connected, forming a path that would lead to understanding, insight, and perhaps even a revelation that could ripple outward to the valley and town below. Ethan inhaled deeply, letting the atmosphere settle around him, absorbing the quiet magnitude of the moment, aware that the mountain, the artifacts, and the dog beside him were all part of a careful orchestration of discovery, a journey through time and intention that was far from over. And he stepped forward slowly, heart attuned to the rhythm of the place, prepared for the next layer of the hidden story to emerge before them. Ethan stepped fully into the heart of the chamber, the passage widening into an open area where light from the fissure above mingled with the glow of minerals embedded in the walls, creating a soft tapestry of gold and silver across the stone floor. Shadow moved just ahead, paws silent against the uneven ground, tail low and sweeping gently, guiding Ethan toward a low stone pedestal in the center of the space. The pedestal held a collection of objects arranged with deliberate care, small glass vials filled with water and soil, carved wooden figures depicting animals and mountain scenes, and a set of parchment scrolls bound with delicate twine. Ethan crouched to examine them, noting the precision and care in each piece, understanding that they were not mere artifacts but elements of a story meticulously preserved over decades. He lifted a scroll carefully, unrolling it to reveal sketches and notes detailing the valley below, the patterns of sunlight and shadow, and references to phenomena that had once been recorded by those who had lived in harmony with the mountain. Shadow pressed close, amber eyes alert, occasionally nudging a vial with a gentle paw, signaling its importance or drawing attention to details Ethan might have missed. The air was still but charged with quiet energy, carrying the scent of mineral, frost, and faint traces of wood from the carved figures, a sensory tapestry that heightened the sense of discovery. Ethan's fingers traced the carvings on a wooden animal, the smooth surface polished by time, and he felt the subtle hum of the mountain resonate through his body, a connection that spoke of patience, observation, and respect for the hidden knowledge that surrounded him. The chamber seemed alive with the echoes of time, the soft hum waxing and waning as if responding to their presence, and Ethan realized that each artifact, each marking, was part of a deliberate narrative, a guide left for those who were ready to understand. Shadow led him toward a recess in the far wall, where the faint glimmer of something metallic reflected the filtered light, hinting at a deeper secret. Ethan knelt beside it, clearing frost and debris to reveal a small iron box, its surface etched with symbols that matched those on the scrolls and carvings, connecting the objects, the chamber, and the mountain in an intricate pattern of meaning. He lifted the lid slowly, the soft creak of metal sounding unusually loud in the quiet, revealing delicate instruments, charts, and small tools meticulously preserved. Each piece spoke of observation, care, and a desire to preserve knowledge for those who could appreciate it, and Ethan felt a profound respect for the person or people who had left this legacy. Shadow remained attentive, ears twitching at subtle shifts in the cavern, tail low and steady, a living companion attuned to the hidden rhythm of the mountain. Ethan carefully laid out the instruments and charts on the stone floor, comparing them with the scrolls and carved figures, sensing a pattern emerging, a story of the land, the sky, and the hidden mysteries that connected them all. The sunlight shifted, glinting off quartz and mica, highlighting details that had previously been invisible, and a gentle breeze whispered through the fissure, carrying the faint scent of snow and mineral, as though the mountain itself was affirming their discovery. Ethan exhaled slowly, letting the quiet magnitude of the chamber sink in, aware that each discovery was not isolated but a chapter in a larger story that had waited patiently to be revealed, and with Shadow by his side, he felt ready to follow the narrative wherever it would lead, through the mountain, into the valley, and into the town below, where the implications of their findings would quietly, profoundly unfold. Ethan felt the weight of the discoveries settle around him, a quiet hum of anticipation mingling with the chill in the cavern air. Shadow pressed close, nose brushing Ethan's glove, tail sweeping in steady rhythm, a companion and guide through the labyrinth of stone and secrets. The narrow fissure they had followed opened into a larger chamber, its walls lined with veins of quartz and mica that caught the filtered light in glimmering patterns, casting an ethereal glow across the uneven floor. Each step they took was deliberate, boots crunching softly against frost-covered stones, echoing faintly in the vast silence. Ethan crouched slightly, examining subtle grooves in the floor that aligned with markings on the walls, sensing a deliberate design, a puzzle meant to be followed with care and attention. Shadow paused near a low ridge, pawing gently at a partially concealed depression, and Ethan knelt to brush away frost and dust, revealing a small lever crafted from aged iron, delicate yet precise in its construction. He lifted it carefully, feeling a faint vibration that resonated through the stone beneath his palm, a rhythm that matched the quiet hum that had guided them this far. Around them, dust motes floated in shafts of light, drifting slowly as if the cavern itself were breathing, alive with the centuries of hidden stories preserved within. Ethan moved methodically, examining the artifacts they had collected, aligning vials, carved figures, and scrolls on a flat stone surface, cross-referencing each detail against markings and carvings on the walls, realizing that a pattern was emerging, a narrative woven into the very structure of the mountain. Shadow circled the space, ears twitching, tail low, attentive to vibrations Ethan could not detect, a silent partner in discovery, guiding him toward the subtle cues embedded by those who had come before. The air grew warmer, carrying the faint scent of mineral and aged wood, mingled with the crispness of snow drifting through the fissure above, a sensory reminder of the layers of time and care that had preserved this hidden trove. Ethan crouched beside a series of etched stones, running his fingers along their smooth surfaces, tracing lines that suggested maps, constellations, and observations of celestial events, each symbol aligned to create a story of the land and its mysteries. Shadow nudged him forward, guiding him toward a deeper recess where faint light shimmered across a small metallic object embedded in the stone floor, intricate in design and glinting with polished edges despite the age of the cavern. Ethan examined it carefully, feeling its weight, the precise alignment of its components, understanding that it functioned as both a key and a guide, a bridge between the artifacts, the markings, and the mountain itself. He set the object aside momentarily and observed the chamber as a whole, noting how each element, the carvings, the objects, the natural formations, and the faint hum of resonance, interacted in a cohesive pattern, designed to be uncovered step by step, patiently awaiting someone attentive enough to perceive its meaning. Shadow pressed against his side, amber eyes reflecting the filtered light, a grounding presence as Ethan absorbed the significance of the discovery. Sunlight shifted gradually through the fissure, illuminating previously hidden details, casting tiny rainbows across the stone and revealing micro-etchings and notches that had gone unnoticed, each a subtle instruction or hint toward further understanding. Ethan inhaled slowly, letting the quiet magnitude of the space settle in, the rhythm of the mountain, the artifacts, and Shadow's guidance converging into a cohesive awareness that the story they were uncovering was not simply a collection of objects or carvings, but a carefully orchestrated narrative meant to convey knowledge, preserve history, and perhaps guide future generations. Every vibration, every reflection, every sound, no matter how faint, felt meaningful, and with Shadow beside him, Ethan felt prepared to follow the next steps, ready to uncover the remaining layers of mystery, insight, and wonder hidden deep within the mountain and waiting to connect with the valley and town below. Ethan felt a subtle shift in the air as he stepped further into the heart of the cavern, the faint hum growing steadier and warmer, resonating gently against his chest and hands. Shadow moved just ahead, ears high, tail sweeping slowly in the stillness, every step deliberate, almost ritualistic, as if sensing the significance of what lay beyond. The chamber opened wider, revealing a stone platform in the center, smooth and flat, surrounded by natural alcoves that glimmered with veins of quartz, mica, and other minerals catching the soft light filtering from above. Ethan crouched to examine the platform, noting faint etchings along the edges, lines and symbols that hinted at a purpose long forgotten but clearly intentional, a careful design meant to guide, reveal, and illuminate understanding. Shadow pressed close, pawing lightly at the floor near one of the alcoves, nudging Ethan toward a set of small, intricately carved boxes, each sealed with aged leather straps and etched with symbols similar to those on the platform. Ethan lifted the first box carefully, the leather smooth yet brittle with age, and opened it to reveal a series of handwritten journals and folded maps, each page yellowed, edges frayed, and ink faded to a soft brown, yet legible and precise. He traced the lines of the maps, noting valleys, mountain ridges, and hidden pathways, a topographical record, and a guide to places forgotten by time, each detail aligned with carvings and objects discovered earlier, forming a narrative that wove the mountain, the valley, and the town below into a cohesive story. Shadow nosed at the next box, revealing delicate instruments, compasses, and glass vials, each filled with preserved water, soil, and mineral samples, carefully labeled and organized with meticulous attention to detail. Ethan lifted a vial to the light, observing the subtle variations in color and texture, marveling at the dedication and foresight of the unknown individuals who had crafted, collected, and concealed these objects for decades. The cavern air carried a faint scent of earth, frost, and mineral, mingling with the subtle warmth emanating from the deeper recesses, a sensory reminder of the natural and deliberate harmony of the space. Ethan arranged the artifacts, journals, and maps across the platform, aligning them with the carvings and markings on the walls, and gradually a pattern emerged, a story that spoke not only of geography and observation, but of the connection between the mountain, the sky, and human endeavor. Light shifted subtly through the fissure, illuminating additional carvings previously hidden in shadow, each symbol corresponding to maps, instruments, or vials, a deliberate orchestration of knowledge preserved for the observant and patient. Shadow pawed lightly at a small crevice in the floor, revealing a narrow channel that descended further, and Ethan bent to peer into it, noting the cool draft, the faint hum, and the alignment with symbols etched above. He understood that the channel, the alcoves, and the artifacts formed a network of guidance, a system of discovery meant to be uncovered step by step, revealing secrets that could transform understanding of the valley, the mountain, and the town beyond. The hum intensified slightly as Ethan examined the channel, the subtle vibrations resonating through his boots and gloves, connecting him physically and mentally to the space around him. Sunlight and shadow played across the walls, illuminating fine scratches and etchings that seemed to shimmer with knowledge, guiding him toward the next step in the journey. Shadow pressed close, ears flicking at subtle variations in the air, tail low but steady, a presence both reassuring and alert, emphasizing the trust between them and the partnership that had led them through every discovery to this point. Ethan exhaled slowly, absorbing the quiet grandeur and purpose of the cavern, aware that each object, marking, and resonance was deliberate, a message carried through time, patiently awaiting those who could understand it. He felt a sense of anticipation, a calm focus, knowing that they were on the verge of uncovering the most significant revelation within the mountain, one that would connect past and present, the hidden and the known, and perhaps even alter the story of the town below. Shadow nudged him forward, and together they moved toward the channel, ready to follow the subtle guidance of the mountain and the instincts of a dog whose awareness surpassed the ordinary, stepping into the next stage of a carefully orchestrated journey through history, mystery, and discovery. Ethan followed Shadow down the narrow channel, each step measured and deliberate, boots crunching softly against the frost-laced stones, the faint hum of the mountain guiding them forward like a pulse in the earth. The passage opened into a hidden chamber, wider than the ones before, its ceiling arched in veins of quartz and mica reflecting the faint light in delicate prisms that scattered across the walls. Frost crystals clung to the edges of small ledges, sparkling like a constellation captured within the stone, and the air was rich with the scent of minerals, cold stone, and a subtle, earthy warmth that seemed to emanate from deep within. Shadow paused near a flat, smooth section of the floor, amber eyes fixed, tail low and steady, nudging Ethan forward, signaling that the next clue lay precisely at this point. Ethan crouched, brushing away frost and loose pebbles, revealing a series of shallow depressions carved into the stone, aligned with symbols etched into the walls and ceiling, forming a pattern both intricate and deliberate, a silent map awaiting interpretation. He traced the lines with gloved fingers, feeling the subtle ridges and grooves, sensing a rhythm that seemed to pulse through the stone itself, a connection between artifact, mountain, and the hidden knowledge embedded for generations. On the far side of the chamber, partially obscured by a natural formation of stalagmites, a small wooden chest lay nestled, weathered but intact, its surface etched with symbols matching those found throughout the previous chambers. Ethan approached, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of the floor, and lifted the lid slowly, revealing a collection of preserved manuscripts, carefully rolled maps, and a set of finely crafted instruments, each piece maintained with meticulous precision. He lifted one of the manuscripts, unrolling it gently to reveal a series of sketches and notes detailing celestial events, patterns of sunlight over the valley, and natural occurrences that had been observed and recorded long before the town had expanded below. Shadow pressed close, pawing lightly at a glass vial filled with mineral-laden water, nudging Ethan to examine it, highlighting its importance in the pattern of discoveries. Ethan arranged the manuscripts, maps, and instruments across the stone platform, aligning them with the carvings and symbols around the chamber, letting a narrative emerge, a story of observation, care, and foresight, a hidden message encoded in geography, light, and material carefully preserved for those willing to observe and understand. Light from the fissure above shifted gradually, illuminating previously unseen markings, tiny scratches and etchings that connected maps, vials, and instruments into a cohesive system of knowledge. The hum in the chamber resonated gently through Ethan's body, subtle yet insistent, and he felt a profound connection to the mountain, the artifacts, and Shadow's keen awareness, realizing that each element they had uncovered was not isolated but intentionally intertwined to convey a larger truth. He leaned closer to the final recess, where a small metallic device embedded in the stone reflected the filtered light, intricate in design, delicate, and perfectly preserved. Ethan studied it, feeling the subtle vibrations when his fingers brushed against the metal, a resonance that aligned with the hum and the pulse of the chamber itself, a silent confirmation that the path they followed was intentional, guided by knowledge and foresight. Shadow nudged his side, a gentle encouragement to proceed, reminding Ethan that the journey was as much about partnership as discovery, and together they moved forward, each step deepening the understanding of the secrets preserved within the mountain. Ethan exhaled slowly, absorbing the quiet grandeur and the meticulous orchestration of the chamber, aware that they stood at a threshold of revelation, that what they were uncovering could not only illuminate the past, but also connect meaningfully to the present, guiding insight, understanding, and change for the town and valley beyond. With Shadow at his side, senses attuned to every vibration, sound, and light reflection, Ethan stepped toward the center of the chamber, ready to engage with the final elements of the hidden story, the culmination of discovery, patience, and trust in the silent guidance of the mountain and the dog whose instincts had carried them faithfully through every hidden corridor and chamber to this extraordinary threshold. Ethan stepped back from the final set of artifacts, feeling the weight of understanding settling around him like the slow warmth of sunlight after a long winter night. Shadow pressed close, nose brushing against Ethan's boot, tail low and sweeping in a gentle rhythm, as if sensing the quiet completion of a long journey. The cavern was alive with soft reflections, the light from the fissure above catching veins of quartz and mica embedded in the walls, scattering them across the floor in a luminous mosaic that seemed to acknowledge their discoveries. Ethan crouched, surveying the space, the arrangement of manuscripts, maps, glass vials, carved figures, and instruments forming a cohesive story that spoke across generations, revealing the careful observation, dedication, and foresight of those who had hidden these treasures. The rhythmic hum that had guided them now seemed to soften, a gentle pulse in harmony with the mountain, as if the cavern itself exhaled, acknowledging that the right hands had come to uncover its secrets. He lifted a small, brass compass from the central pedestal, turning it slowly, the needle quivering slightly before settling in alignment with the patterns etched into the stone floor, revealing the final link in the chain of hidden knowledge. Shadow nudged a delicate vial of water, its contents catching the light like liquid crystal, and Ethan held it close to the compass, noting how each element in the chamber related, a network of guidance, preservation, and hidden wisdom carefully layered over time. Sunlight shifted through the fissure, illuminating fine details in the carvings that had previously gone unnoticed, and Ethan saw connections emerge between the instruments, maps, and symbols, revealing pathways, hidden water sources, and subtle markers that hinted at the broader story of the valley and the town below. He exhaled slowly, feeling the calm after the crescendo of discovery, sensing that each step, each observation, and each artifact was part of a greater lesson, a quiet testament to patience, perseverance, and the meticulous care of those who had gone before. Shadow pressed against his side, a steady and reassuring presence, guiding him back through the alcoves toward the entrance, where the golden light of morning spilled into the chamber, highlighting the brilliance of frost, mineral, and stone. Ethan retraced his steps, placing the compass, vials, and manuscripts back in careful order, ensuring the integrity of the hidden message remained intact, each object aligned as it had been intended, ready for future discoverers to continue the story. The hum faded to a soft whisper, the air settling around them, and Ethan felt a profound sense of closure, a connection between past and present, discovery and understanding, man and mountain, dog and companion. Emerging into the light of the morning, the valley spread out below, sparkling with frozen streams, rooftops, and winding roads, unaware that secrets long buried had been gently returned to the world. Shadow trotted beside him, alert and faithful, ears flicking at the faint rustle of wind through the trees, tail sweeping low, while Ethan stood for a moment on the ridge, taking in the panorama, the weight of the discoveries, and the quiet miracle of connection between history, nature, and intuition. He inhaled deeply, the crisp mountain air filling his lungs, carrying the faint sense of pine, frost, and stone, and felt a sense of gratitude, awe, and quiet joy, knowing that their journey had not only revealed the hidden treasures of the past, but also restored a sense of purpose, connection, and healing to a land, a town, and to themselves. Shadow nudged him once more, eyes bright and attentive, and together they began the descent toward the valley, the light of the morning guiding their path, the hum of the mountain now a memory intertwined with the quiet, enduring bond between a man and his dog, and the knowledge that some stories wait patiently through decades, sometimes centuries, for the right hearts to find them, understand them, and carry their lessons forward into the world below.